Hello, my name is Chelsea Byler. I go by Chelsea Linnea online, and I wanted to do another sketch blog today because I did one a couple weeks ago and I thought it was a lot of fun. I talked about basically my work as an intern, scientific illustration intern with the Milwaukee Public Museum, and how I got that position and all of that good stuff. So if you want to learn more about scientific illustration, I've got another one of these videos from a couple weeks back. But today I am going to be talking about my favorite topic of all, birds. I really love birds, so this is going to be a lot of fun for me. And I'm going to be drawing a great horned owl today, just because I felt like it. I felt like kind of putting together a great horned owl piece. So I actually volunteer with a nature center in the area, and they have a raptor program. And I started at the raptor program because I had a service learning course in college, and basically what that means was I had to pick a volunteer project and put in a certain amount of hours, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I mentioned to somebody that I was interested in doing something with nature or animals, and they suggested that I take a look at this nature center and their raptor program, and I was just floored. I had no idea that something like this was in the area, and I was super excited about it, but it was also, they kind of warned me that it would be a difficult thing to get into because they're very selective about their volunteers, which is it's a very good thing, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But long story short, I put in my application to be a volunteer there, and I got a call from the lady who runs the Raptor program there, and I just remember like getting off of the phone after she said that I could have an interview and just crying because I was so happy that I would get a chance to work with the birds. And then of course when I went to the interview, it was less of an interview and more of a, okay, on your first day this is what you're going to do. So I was absolutely ecstatic. And it was just the start of something much greater than I had any idea it would be. So I've been working with the birds of prey for about 2.5 years almost. I started, I think, in June of 2013. So it's been nearly 2.5 years now. And it's just been fantastic. I absolutely love working with the birds. I go there usually once a week. Sometimes life gets the better of you and you can't go in all the time. But I try to get in there once a week for just general cleaning duties and working with the raptors one-on-one, training with them. But then I also go in for educational programs as well. And that's really one of the big reasons why they're so selective about their volunteers, is because it's such a big time commitment. It's not something where, you can kind of pop in from time to time and, be gone for months at a time and then just show up one day. You really want to put in as much time as you possibly can to work with the birds so that you develop a good relationship with each one, because we do those we do a lot of educational programs, and not only do you want to be comfortable with the bird in the first place for the bird's own comfort, but even more so when you're bringing them into a strange place with a lot of strange people, you want to make sure that the person who's handling them knows that bird really well, and that the bird knows that person really well, so they're as comfortable as they can be during those educational programs. So usually when I go in for weekly cleaning and chores and raptor training, we start off with the chores. There's a lot of work to do. Each bird has its own little enclosure, and they have their choice of where they want to sit. They've got lots of different perches. Some of them are covered so they can go out in the sun or the rain if they want to, or they can kind of get out of the weather if they decide they want to. They've got little houses where they can nest if they want to. So it's a great setup for each bird, but we do need to clean them every single day. So we'll go in, we'll change their water bowls, and whatever food they haven't eaten gets pulled out, and some of them, depending on what day it is, we'll have to full clean the mew and do lots of scrubbing, and it's pretty gross. It's a pretty gross job, and I cannot tell you the number of like tiny little rat and mouse bodies I have pulled out of gravel. So yeah, it's not really for the faint of heart, and there's a lot of gross stuff involved. Um, but it's definitely worth it for the birds. You know, after a while, you don't even notice that you're pulling guts and you know, castings and all sorts of gross stuff out of their mews, because it's just another thing. It's just another thing that you have to deal with when you're working with the birds, and it just becomes part of your everyday routine. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit gross. It's not for the faint of heart, but you know, you get used to it, and it's not really that bad once you get used to it. And then after we do all of our chores and make sure that, you know, the birds are all of their spaces are cleaned up as well as possible, then we actually have to work with training the birds one-on-one. And it's so weird to go back and think about how much training that I've done with the birds, because when I started, whenever anyone starts working with the birds, you start with the smallest and usually, not always, but usually most manageable birds. It's easier to kind of get a handle on the basics of working with the birds in general on some of those smaller birds, and then as you learn them, you sort of go one by one very slowly. As you learn them, you also get to learn the differences between each bird. You know, what's their personality, what are the things that they like and what they don't like, what are the behaviors that you have to look out for, you know, especially because you're the one who's in charge of you're responsible for the safety of that bird, and you're responsible for the comfort of that bird. So you want to be very in tune to those sorts of behaviors and what you have to look out for when you're handling the birds, and each bird is going to be a little bit different. So it's really important that you kind of go slowly and learn them one at a time. And I've actually worked with nearly half of our birds. I'm trained on both of our American kestrels, one of our screech owls, our barred owl, our red-tailed hawk, our Harris hawk, and I'm working with our peregrine falcon right now. So it's so strange and crazy to go back and think about when, you know, I had only gotten through, you know, only just gotten through those first three small birds and was finally going to get to hold one of the larger birds, and how exciting that was. And now it's just part of, you know, everyday work when you have to move the birds from one place to another or something. I'm usually the person who does that just because I'm trained on those animals. And it's so cool to go back and look at that progress. Like, it's so obvious that I've gone through a lot of progress in training these birds and learning all of their different behaviors and everything. So it's really fantastic to kind of look back on that. But yeah, so we each train on all of the different aspects of those birds. We'll start off with just sort of learning how to handle them. So someone else will will take them out of their mew or out of their cubicle, which is sort of an area where they are if they're not going to be in their enclosure. So they'll kind of get them for you, and then they'll transfer them over to your glove just so you can hold them for a bit and start to learn their behaviors. And then you get into the details of, you know, how do I put this bird in its crate if it's going to go to an educational program? Or, you know, how do I put this bird back in its mew? Because, you know, different birds will have different comfort levels and different behaviors that you have to take care of while you're transferring them, and all sorts of things like that. So, you know, it's really kind of an intense progress or process, and you have to go very slowly with each bird and make sure that they're going to be comfortable with you before you ever take them out for those educational programs. So that's usually how we do our program, or how we do our training. And then for the programs, what we'll do is we'll bring the birds out, again, usually in front of a lot of strangers that they don't know, so again, you want to really know them very well to be able to gauge their comfort level with those things. And we basically talk to the public about these animals and what their current status is. You know, we talk about things like DDT and lead in the environment and all of these hazards to birds' health. As well as just sort of general information about our birds and how we acquired them. All of our birds are non-releasable due to one thing or another. So we'll kind of give them their life history and all of that good stuff as well. So it's really cool to be able to kind of talk to the public one-on-one about these animals and give them more information about them. But that's basically what I do with the birds, and it's always a really cool thing to do. You know, I love it. I love spending my time with the birds, but it's also just really fantastic to talk to other people about my experience with them, because I feel like people kind of take them for granted almost, or don't know that much about them because they don't interact with them one-on-one. So getting to talk to people about my experiences really helps them understand more about why these animals are as cool as they are. So yeah, that's basically what I could go on with this topic for hours, but that's basically what I have to say about working with the birds in general. So again, if you're new to my artwork, I wanted to say thank you for watching. Thank you for coming in. I go by the same handle on all of my art sites: Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, and Instagram. I have the name Chelsea Linnaev. So I will add some links to that. And thank you again for coming in and watching. I really appreciate it.